Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the podcast. Before I get too deep into today's episode, I want to caution you that today's topic and subject matter may not be appropriate for younger listeners. So if you are listening to this while you're driving, you may want to wait. If you are listening to this with younger children around, you may want to put on your headphones or put in your earbuds. A week ago, on May 24th, our country witnessed the second deadliest school shooting in our country. 19 precious students and 2 beloved teachers were brutally murdered by an 18-year-old gunman who walked into Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. At the time of this recording, and certainly after this episode is posted, we will learn more and more information about the details and the events that happened and that led to this horrific day. As many of you know, I had a 25-year career in education, and it's events like these that completely tear my heart apart. Like you, I have sat and watched the news. I have read stories online. I have seen dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of posts from people who have expressed frustration, anger, upset, dismay over how this continues to happen in our country. And I have struggled with what to talk to you about this week. Interestingly, I had planned an episode around professional development activities for the summer, particularly with a lens for school teachers and educators in mind who might be looking to do something with their time this summer. And in a few weeks, you'll hear a conversation I had with Joanne Kaminsky, who helps teachers build a part-time or full-time online tutoring business. I'll bring that episode to you in a few weeks. But I couldn't do the episode I had planned. I am too upset. I am too angry and hurt by what has happened and the response that has come from it. I want to be very clear. The way that I look at this, the way I have viewed this situation, especially in light of what has happened this past week, is this is not a political issue. It is a humanity issue. And while this podcast faithfully covers episodes related to career and leadership transition, I would be remiss if I didn't take time on this podcast to share with you some things, because it doesn't matter anymore whether you work in a school or an office building or a warehouse or a supermarket, or a church. All the places that we have believed and have been raised to believe are safe spaces seem to no longer be. How do you look at your loved one before they leave the house and not worry that that might be the last time you see them or kiss them goodbye? There is so much going on in this and so much to unpack. And I assure you that in the scope of this episode, we are barely going to scratch the surface of it. My goal and intention for you with this episode is to share some thoughts, to be very vulnerable with you, to let you know that as a coach, I don't have all the answers, nor do I ever claim to be. But like you, I am struggling with this. I was a school teacher. I was in the classroom when Columbine happened. In 1999, I remember standing in the hallway of my school, talking to teacher colleagues after the school day was over, wondering how it could happen. And then 2 years later, 9/11 happened. I taught in a school in Bergen County, New Jersey, about 30 to 40 minutes outside of Manhattan. 9/11, right after the school year had started. You want to talk about leadership? My vice principal was new to the role for just a few weeks. And he came by my classroom at the change of period a little bit after 9 o'clock to tell me something had happened. The story was developing, but I was not supposed to say anything to the kids. Our school is shaped like a U. And while my classroom was on the outside and I couldn't see the inner courtyard, my colleagues who had classrooms that could see that saw parents just parade in and out to go grab their kids that day. And as the day went on and we learned the horrific events of 9/11, we all sat there and wondered what was next. We had more and more safety drills, lockdown drills, fire drills. It wasn't something we just did. We had to be really good at it. It was compliance. It was the best information we had gotten from our leaders, our law enforcement officers, anybody that was there based on events that had happened, that if a situation happened where a gunman entered the building, these were the things you were supposed to do. I was in my early and mid 30s, and I was having to learn how to protect a room full of 25 students at any point, at any time, if something happened when they were in my classroom. I remember this one day, we were doing a lockdown drill, and the protocol was you moved all the students to the back of the room. Now, in my classroom, there were a whole bunch of windows facing the outside of the building. So you close the blinds, you lock the windows, you lock the door. And while you tried to cover up the floor to ceiling glass that was by the front door, you just don't know how much time you have. But the one thing you had to do was get your students into the corner of the room, shut the lights off, and be quiet. I have been in a building that has been on fire and have had to get out of it. I take fire drills very seriously. I take lockdown drills very seriously. And on this day, my 8th graders, we had all moved to the back of the room, and it's a drill. You know, it's quote unquote not real, but it's a drill. And you're supposed to act like it's a drill. And I said 2 words to my students that day I have never, ever said to a group of kids. I said, shut up. They were acting and carrying on. I said, shut up. It's because God forbid somebody walks into this room, I'm the first one they're going to shoot. Because as teachers, you protect your students. You're not the one that hides in the corner with all of your students around you. You do whatever you can to shield those kids, because as a teacher, you hold very strongly that you are to take care of those kids and provide the safest space possible for them. That's what Irma Garcia and Eva Morales did for their students. They are heroes. They were protecting their babies. 10 9-year-olds with unquestionable fear. And as we are hearing what is coming out, you may not work in a school, but what if you work in an office, a warehouse, a supermarket, a church, or you happen to be in there on that day? We don't know what we would do. Yes, we all want to show up in these ways, but we don't know until we're tested. And I pray to God we are never tested again. But the reality is, we will. It's our reality right now. I don't care what side of the aisle you are on, whether you are a staunch liberal or a staunch conservative, whether you believe people should have guns or don't. Personally, I don't own one. I fired a gun once. I didn't really like it. I have very dear friends and family members who own guns. That is their choice. And as of right now, that's their right. I don't believe we're going to get all the guns out of everybody's hands. What I don't understand is how does an 18-year-old, how are they allowed to buy 2 assault rifles, military weapons, and they can't legally drink and they can't rent a car? Let that one sink in. Is there a mental health issue? Absolutely. And what we have seen based on the research and even from your own personal experiences is we have known over the last 2 years because of this pandemic, our mental health crisis is greater than ever. And as we wrap up May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, isn't it ironic that we're having this conversation? What do we do? What's going to happen? These are the things that have kept me up at night, wondering and worrying. I work with clients across a variety of industries. I have some people who are on the front lines. They don't have an option of working remotely. And I have other clients who have been, and they've enjoyed working remotely. And they start talking about hybrid arrangements and maybe going back in the office for a couple of days. And I have clients who have been ordered back to their office, either by an elected official or by their company, and says, as of this date, you are back in the office 5 days a week. And I was thinking about all of this and I thought, how do I share some information with all of you today? And I got thinking about my audience, my listeners, my clients. And here's what I know. 70% of my clients are women. Pretty much holds true for my listener base as well. They typically range in age from 37, 38 to their late 40s. Their biggest fear or pain point is about being stuck, undervalued, underutilized. They want to make an impact. They know if they're going to make a change in their career, they need to do it now so they can feel as if they are growing roots. So that as they get to their 40s, which is typically their wealth building years, they are not only positioned to do their greatest work, but also make their greatest money. They care about making a difference. Many of them are raising their families and have school-age children like the ones who were brutally murdered in Uvalde. And at the same time, they're learning how to take care of their aging parents and watching them get older and more frail. And I thought, what is it that I could say? What is it that I could do when I turn on this microphone to share with you this week about this senseless tragedy that might make some sense? Without question, we have to be more aware. It goes back to that old saying, if you see something, say something. We also cannot live in fear. It is what terrorism does. It strikes us at the heart and the core of this, and we wonder what it is we can do, or when's it going to happen next? We can't live our lives in fear. But if you have children, you worry about your kids. I talked with a dear, dear friend of mine today. His son is just over 100 days old, and he's worried about sending him to school. You worry about how safe your kids are going to be when they go to school each day, and you pray that you're never going to get a call that there is an incident at the school. If you work in an office building, a work site, a hospital, a supermarket, wherever that is, you're probably wondering, how safe is it? How well are you protected if something happens? How often is your leadership having those conversations with facilities and operations to ensure that if something happens, everyone is safe? And more importantly, do you know what to do if an incident happens? But here's the larger issue. How do we provide safer spaces? I know that there are people out there that will say everybody needs to have a gun. We heard somebody say last week, I'm not going to mention his name, that the reason why the shooter got into Uvalde was that there was an unlocked door. We hear things like, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Sure, they have to pull the trigger. That is the thing. Why can't the aisles come together? Is it the gun lobby? Is it certain beliefs? Look, I said before, I don't believe we're going to be able to take all the guns away. I just don't see it happening. But there's got to be something to do that we can get this situation under better control, because the world is watching. We are the only country with this problem at this magnitude. And it is impacting the way you are looking at your lives and your jobs. So here are some of the things you can do. This is your mid-career journey. And I get it if you are questioning whatever is next. But first and foremost, talk about it. Talk about it with your loved ones, your colleagues. If you are having that bad day, you are worried, you are frightened, you are fearful, have a conversation with somebody. Know you are not alone. But one of the things we can do in this country is we can vote. And I get it. You may live in a part of this country where no matter how you vote, it is not going to change the way the political tide is in that state. But you can show up and vote. They might see the numbers start to turn a little bit. You can donate. You can donate to organizations that support your beliefs. You can donate and support candidates' campaigns who you want to rally behind. I will tell you that the next time I go to the poll, I'm going to do a much better job of being more informed about where my candidates stand on this issue and others, because the gun issue is just one. We're going to hear in the next few weeks about a ruling about Roe v. Wade. What's coming next for LGBTQ rights, which obviously is something important to me as well. And while I personally don't believe that abortion is a form of birth control, I will stand with her. I will stand with her as having the right to choose what happens to her body. You can vote and you can donate. You can support your local police and ensure they're doing the right thing. That if they are called to protect and to serve, that they are doing it in a way to support the people in your neighborhood. We need to stop vilifying everyone and everything unfairly or unjustly. But I want to call out teachers for a moment, because this sits so deep in my heart. I have followed posts of my teacher colleagues who have expressed fear, who have said that they're afraid they're going to be forced to go to school with a gun, that they want to get out, but they can't. Or they'll say, I didn't get into this to go to work every day and be in fear. And so, if you are a parent and you have school-age children, here is what I'm going to offer you in this. You thank those teachers because they are there for a large part of the day when you can't. You have entrusted them to take care of your kids. Whether it is a public, private, charter school, or you are homeschooling them in somebody else's house, not your own. They are there with your kids when you can't be. And I have watched the tides turn over the last couple of years with this pandemic, where we started off celebrating teachers for all of the great work that they were doing, that people didn't realize how hard it was to teach a room full of kids when parents had to juggle their own work while trying to get their kids online in a virtual learning environment. And in the matter of a few months, that tide changed. We saw teachers being vilified because of their job. They only work 9 or 10 months out of the year. That's their academic calendar. You don't see the second job that they have to go work at, because they can't make ends meet on their teacher salary. You don't see them doing tutoring jobs or consulting work or picking up summer school work or additional work, because they're paying off their student loans and they're trying to take care of their families. So here is what I'm going to suggest. The last thing another teacher needs, in my opinion, is another fucking mug. You go to that board meeting. You go to that school board meeting and you stand up there and you call out those teachers that your children are in their classrooms, and you publicly thank them and everybody else who is in that school. You make that school board know that their teachers are important, that you appreciate the work that they're doing. And collectively, you work to ensuring that school is safer in whatever your school district decides. But I'm going to entrust that you're going to know what is best. You're going to work with your school to figure out whatever is best for them. And you are going to show up and have those intentional conversations that lead to action. Like many of you, I'm a person of faith. My faith is very important to me, but thoughts and prayers are meaningless if we're not taking action on them. We can pray about this all day long, but if we are not taking action, to me, that is the greater travesty. What are we doing? To echo the words of Senator Chris Murphy, who passionately plead on the Senate floor. So I didn't want to end this episode on a low note. I want to end it on a high note. And I want to call out 3 educational colleagues of mine who I want to celebrate and lift up, who are doing some fantastic work right now. You may not know them. They don't even know that I'm calling them out in this episode. I hope what I share warms their heart. I hope it gives you some renewed faith in what they're doing and how to connect with them. You'll see all of their info in the show notes. But first, I want to call out Alethea Felton. I had the honor of working with Alethea in 2010 when I went to the District of Columbia Public Schools. She was one of the teachers, one of the instructional coaches, rather, in my cohort. I directly supervised her. I have seen her ed career progress. She is now a professional development specialist for another district. She is an excellent educator. She travels to different schools in her district, supporting teachers and helping them be better. And at the same time, she is a motivational and inspirational speaker and health and wellness coach. Watch her. She's going to be doing, and she is doing, some amazing and fantastic things. She is tired. Like so many teachers out there, she is tired. She's doing everything she can to support her teachers who are supporting their students. And she keeps showing up every single day to go to her job. I know so many people like that, but if I named them all, I would forget someone and I'd feel awful. So to all of my teacher colleagues and friends who are out there doing the amazing work you do every day, I see you, I celebrate you, and my heart breaks for you. But I admire you for what you are doing. So Alethea, I love you and I thank you. To Dr. Hope Blecker. Hope is an outstanding ESL specialist and a former educational administrator. Her company is called Hope for Education. Her plea is to work with teachers to help make planning more dynamic, engaging, and efficient. She partners with school districts to help their teachers plan more robust and engaging professional development that helps them bring life and, as she puts it, hope back into the classroom. Hope, I've been a fan of yours from the start. Your message is so needed right now. And I can't wait to see what else you're going to create. And lastly, I want to call out Julie Flynn Badal. Julie is the educator and creative director at Working Well. She is a mindfulness and wellness expert who works with adolescents and adults in neighborhoods, communities, school districts to help them talk about some more, and Julie, I apologize, I'm going to mess this up right now, but more like contemplative practices. Thank you. I think I found the words. Contemplative practices to help deal and process with all the stress and anxiety that we are facing right now. If there was ever a time for something like this, I offer you to consider it. Julie, your work, just like Hope's and Alethea's, is so needed right now. And I will continue to champion your cause and everything you do. I am honored to know you, and I am blessed because of it. You know an Alethea, you know a Hope, and you know a Julie. There is someone in your circle that I offer you to lift up and celebrate for the work that they do. Yes, teachers have a fond place in my heart, without question. It's where I spent the majority of my career. But your Alethea, Hope, or Julie doesn't have to be a teacher. It could be someone you work alongside. It could be someone who's helping to create these safety and leadership initiatives in case something happens. They have a very difficult job in front of them. Don't make it harder. Partner. Be an advocate. Be a champion. We need each other more now than ever. And while I fear that there'll be another Uvalde, a Columbine, there's going to be another one. I hope and pray there isn't. But let's start taking steps. Let's cross aisles. Let's find a way to come to some kind of solution. Because how we show up matters. And your career and the impact you want to make is all based on how you show up. So, my friends, thank you for listening, for letting me share, for spending some time with you. I'll be back with you next week. But until then, here's a big hug. And let's just hold each other close. And we'll figure this out. Take care.